Have you ever been captivated by an image from the past but found it hard to connect with the subject on a personal level? We are often limited by the technology of our times, and this is especially true when we look at history. Cavemen could only record the world around them using rudimentary paintings, antiquity used art and statues, and even the Victorians were limited to photographs that lacked detail and scope. This forces us to view the past through a prism that seems different, almost alien to the way we perceive the world around us today. That's why I find it so interesting when these images from the past can be colorized, allowing us to more easily humanize and relate to our forefathers. With this in mind, we're going to look at some of these from the greatest generation and explain some of the backstories about these images from the war. This is arguably one of the most iconic scenes from World War II, and was the day of reckoning for Western Europe. Codenamed Operation Neptune, D-Day was, and still is, the largest amphibious invasion in history. This photo was taken from inside a landing craft approaching the beaches of Normandy. It was packed in with as many American infantrymen as possible, ready to liberate France and push back the Nazi war machine. Many of the men pictured would never return to see home soil again. It wasn't just men who fought in the war. This was especially true for women in the Soviet Union. This picture shows Rufina Gasheva 848 night combat missions and Natalie Mechlin 980 night combat missions, decorated as heroes of the Soviet Union for their service with the famed Night Witches unit during World War II. The Night Witches was a German nickname for an all-female unit of flying aces comprised mainly of girls in their late teens. They were famed for the death-defying technique of switching their engines off and gliding to the target to avoid being detected. Hitler was renowned as not being a particularly stable character. His increasing insanity and desperation in the war lead him to go down the path of creating so-called wonder weapons that would revolutionize the battle. Here we see him overlooking the creation of one of these, the Gustav gun. Schwerer Gustav was the largest caliber rifled weapon ever used in combat, and in terms of overall weight, the heaviest mobile artillery piece ever built. It fired the heaviest shells of any artillery piece. It was surpassed in caliber only by the unused British Mallets mortar and the American Little David bomb testing mortar, both at 36 inches, but was the only one of the three to be used in combat. Images like this echo through history, and explain just how evil the Nazi regime was. This was taken in the liberation of Buchenwald, one of the largest concentration camps ever built inside German borders. The emaciated man drinks from a metal bowl, and looks gaunt and dehumanized, but he was one of the lucky ones. The concentration camps and later death camps were a stain on humanity and serve as reminders of the depths that human brutality and evil can go to. The Eiffel Tower is one of the most photographed landmarks in the world, and this particular one shows us how ever-present it has been to Paris and the French people in general. Shown is American infantrymen admiring the view shortly after the liberation of France. To see such a view in the context of a free country must have been a poignant reminder of what this fight was for. Over in the Pacific Theater, the picture wasn't quite as rosy by towards the end of 1944. Pictured are US soldiers embarking on the invasion of the small island chain of Peleliu. In the US, it was a controversial battle because of the island's negligible strategic value and the high casualty rate, which exceeded that of all other amphibious operations during the Pacific War. The National Museum of the Marine Corps called it the bitterest battle of the war for the Marines. The proficient use of modern weaponry on the battlefields of World War II led to devastating destruction and death tolls. One weapon that struck fear into the hearts of combatants more than most was the use of flamethrowers. Invented for the First World War, they found their feet more in the Second World War, and here we see one used in the countryside of Poland. The prevalence of wooden buildings led it being an efficient weapon in destroying infrastructure, as well as routing enemies from the battlefield. Here a US serviceman defends his foxhole against a German attack in the Ardennes. The weapon he uses is the iconic M1 Garand and was the first standard-issue autoloading rifle for the United States. By most accounts, the M1 rifle performed well. General George S. Patton called it the greatest battle implement ever devised. The strain and fatigue of 23 days on the line is shown by Marines of Combat Team C-2/7th U.S. Marines, 1st Marine Division, seen here displaying Japanese battle flags captured during the Battle of Cape Gloucester, 14–15 of January 1944. War souvenirs were commonplace, especially in the bitter fighting scene in the Pacific Theater. Hi guys, hope you're enjoying the video. If you like this content and want to see more interesting history videos, we would massively appreciate it if you would kindly consider subscribing, as it massively helps us out. These kind-o scenes are what everyone was fighting for. The victory parade in France was stuff of legend, as the Allies rid the country of the Nazi regime and their puppet Vichy government. Scenes like this are made more relatable in color and can help us understand the sheer joy felt by the population toward the armed forces. People photographed here would never forget this day and would be emboldened in crafting a